Hey, welcome, welcome, welcome. This is workshop 8 in the series, the free series of the Emotional Heart Healing workshops. I have been so excited to meet some beautiful women and just be able to journey with women who are connecting with a need, connecting with a desire, connecting with a willingness to consider emotional heart healing. Now, I'm Miriam Smout, Acca Redemption Mumma, which is where you'll find me on Facebook. Redemption Mummas is my Facebook name, and my Facebook group is Redemption Mummas. And yeah, if you aren't part of that, then I'll put the links in the description of this video so that you can jump in and join. I help battle-weary women heal deep wounds and reclaim their personal power and unlock God-given destiny. And I do that through intuitive teaching and spirit-led healing. It's an incredibly unique process that has just sort of framed up over the 15 odd years that I've been on this journey myself. Maybe like me, you've been to psychologists, counselors, therapists, and while they help and they take you so far, I know for me, it just didn't give me the breakthrough that I was really needing and looking for. It's, you know, that the mind is one part of us and a very important part, of course, but the cognitive side isn't the side that stands alone in needing healing. We have emotions, we have feelings, we have a heart that is often crying out for healing, but we haven't been taught, I wasn't taught, how to embrace healing for the heart wounds, the heart issues, the hurts in my life that were really impacting me quite deeply. When I was about 45, I call it the unraveling. And that was a period in my life. I was a mother of 5 children, married, but it was really unstable in our marriage. And it was just too much pressure and stress and so much going on in life. And, you know, it doesn't matter how many children you have. It doesn't matter whether you're married, single or not. You know, all of these challenges, all of these life challenges bring a lot of pressure and a lot of stress and can take us into overwhelm. You can be single with no kids and still be experiencing overwhelm. So there's no right or wrong. There's no this shouldn't be happening and that shouldn't be happening. It's just life. Life comes at us, and a lot of the life that we experience might have been decades ago, and we might not even remember some of the things that have brought about some pain or conflict or turmoil in our living even today. So for me, I am very passionate about emotional heart healing, having been through that journey myself and learned how powerful it can be to bring my mind into alignment, to align with all those other beautiful modalities out there like psychology and therapy and counseling. You know, it's not that one thing has its place. They all have their place. But without the emotional side being healed in my case, I know that I was still walking wounded and limping around. So I got to a point where I wasn't willing to accept living with hurts and wounds and pain. However, what I didn't realize is I distanced myself from that pain. In fact, I'd suppressed it. I was never taught ways of managing emotions. My upbringing was, you know, the stoic mother, just tough it out, you know, don't dwell on the past, and all of those kind of phrases I'm sure many of us have heard throughout our lives. And so we become distant from the memory, we become distant from the pain. However, it's still there. It's still in our cells, it's still in our body, it's still in our mind, it's still in our emotions. And over time, we start to shut these things down. We'll shut our emotions down, we'll suppress them, we'll stop listening to our heart. We'll stop listening to the very thing that can actually help us break through and find a way to navigate through all of this stuff. So living compromised was where I was, but something inside of me just rose up and I decided that was it, enough. I wasn't willing to live compromised anymore. So I started a journey of reconnecting with my heart, with my emotions, which at first was really scary because emotions are those things that make us feel and connect us with some pain that if we don't know how to manage and we don't know how to work through it, then it really can bring our life, I call it, out of alignment. So I'm going to quickly share my screen and show you like where I come from, how I've processed my things, my stuff, how I've processed my wounds, how I've understood it and kind of got a handle on it. So this is the concept that I very much use in my teaching and in how I support women. And that's the concept of living in alignment. So living in alignment is this whole concept for me of seeing myself or seeing you as a three-part being. That plumb line is like a straight, heavy weight that pulls our life into alignment, body, soul, and spirit. So the spirit part of me, I want to talk a bit about that today because I want to talk about listening to the still small voice, listening to that still small voice, which is always speaking, always calling out, always trying to get our attention. My husband's printing. Excuse me a minute. So yeah, the spirit voice is a very critical part of our understanding where we're at and what is happening inside of us. However, probably like me, we tend to live so much in our soul. Our soul is the mind, the will, the emotions, the desires, that part of us that can often drive everything we do. And then the body, that's the third part of us. Well, the body has very little say in anything. It just goes where it's told to go and follows where it has to follow. Probably sometimes wishes it does have a voice to say, can you stop living like that? Can you stop feeling like that? So this concept here of living out of alignment, this is what it looks like to me when I think about it. It's the soul part of me that comes out of alignment, my mind, my will, my emotions. And that soul part of me, that's the part that gets really bossy and dominates. And so I start to be led and driven by my feelings. I start to be led and driven by my thoughts, by my desires, the things that I want. And when those things are driving me, I'm not listening to the still small voice. I'm not listening to that spirit part of me. That is actually the part where the life and the energy, really our health, comes from. That spirit part of us is that divine, sacred part that life emanates from. Our life doesn't actually flow from our soul. Our life doesn't actually flow from our thoughts and our emotions. And man, if it did, we'd be in trouble because, we'd be all over the shop. But our life actually flows from the spirit. That's the life-breathing part. It's the part where we feel that fulfillment, we feel that sense of purpose, we feel that fullness, that energy, that flow, that light. That's the part of us that all of that emanates from. The body, the soul, and the spirit. This is what living out of alignment looks like. It's when that soul part comes out of alignment with your body and your spirit. That mind, your will, your emotions, your desires, that's the soulish part of us. And when that's running the show, it actually tries to dominate. Instead of being in alignment with what our spirit might be speaking to us, that still small voice, the soul's dominating. You're being led by your thoughts. The show is being run by how you feel, how you think. Now, the spirit part of us, that's the life-giving part. It's where the energy flows, where the light, where the life, where the purpose. That's where it flows outside of us, or from within us to outside of us, from our spirit. And so if our soul's out of alignment and bossing us and driving us, then our spirit is not being heard. It's not getting, we're not being run, or we're not being managed by that life-giving, life-breathing force. Now, when this is happening, our body, of course, has no say over anything. And our body is just going wherever, we're eating junk, which is an issue for me right now. We are not looking after ourselves because we don't feel like it. We might be over-exercising and actually harming ourselves because we're thinking negative things. So when our soul's out of alignment, our body gets impacted majorly and our spirit gets ignored, and we don't listen to the still small voice. When we're not listening to the still small voice and we're being driven by how we feel, driven by what we're thinking, driven by our desires, then we actually are in trouble. It's not a very safe, healthy place to be. But if over the years we have squashed that still small voice and we haven't been listening and we haven't been allowing it to speak, then we actually end up being very disconnected from it. That's when overthinking steps in. Because we're not listening to the still small voice, we are being driven by our thoughts. So we are overthinking. It's where second guessing jumps in, because we're not being led and directed by the still small voice, which is where the life and the energy and the flow comes for our lives to be productive, to be fulfilled. If we're listening to the soul all the time, our mind, our will, our emotions, this overthinking, this second guessing, just feeling like a volcanic eruption, never knowing when your emotions are just going to, erupt and you get mad and rant and rave and behave badly, which I've done many times before. This is because we're not listening to the still small voice. The still small voice is exactly that. And that's what I wanted to share a bit about today. So I'm going to just call up an action sheet, which I will make available for you in the description of the video today. So the still small voice. This is a really critical part of us to connect with. It's actually something that is always there talking. It's always there trying to get your attention. It's always really, really endeavoring to say and speak and let you know what you actually need. Another word for it is like intuition. When you just get that sense, like that sixth sense, or you have an awareness that something's not right, but you can't quite put your finger on it. That is the still small voice. So how do we connect with the still small voice? Now, when we've been disconnected for a long time, we're going to have to work through a bit of a process. We're going to have to take some time to learn to listen again to that still small voice. And if, like me, you ignored it and you went and did your own thing anyway, and then later you think, oh, I had that premonition, or I had that intuition, or I had that sense that this was the wrong person, or this was the wrong situation, or this was not what I should have been doing. In hindsight, you can actually think, identify, yeah, it was there. It was actually trying to lead me and guide me, but I wasn't paying attention because I disconnected from it. And overlooked it. And living in my soul, I'm overthinking and I'm second guessing and I'm emotionally, not sure if I'm going to erupt at any point. That's a lot of chaos, that's a lot of turmoil that's going on in that space, which is why it can be so hard to listen to that still small voice, because that's what it is. So how do you reconnect with it? How do you go back and connect with the still small voice? This is the process that I went on for myself. You have to practice. You've got to actually sit and practice, giving yourself some time to listen. Now, journaling is a really fantastic way to connect with a still small voice. When you journal, things will come out and you'll be like, wow, I didn't quite connect that I had that thought or that feeling, because what's in your head, and when you journal and put it on paper, it can actually look really different. And so what you're connecting with in your journaling is the still small voice. That's a way to start practicing to listen to it. But there's some other things that you can do, and that this is what I recommend. Learn to rest. Take time to create a space to sit and listen. Now, initially it might only be 2 minutes and you're just like, that's it, I'm done. I can't sit still any longer. That's okay. At least start with something and then build it up to 5 and then maybe try 10 and see what you actually hear. Listen to what you actually hear. Listen to what's coming up. Learn to listen and pay attention and get aware of what that still small voice is saying to you. And as you learn to listen, you're listening with the ears of that spirit part of you. You're listening with the ears of that spirit part of you that knows how you need to live. It knows the life that is yours to live. But when we're not connecting with it, we'll end up doing all sorts of random things that end up taking us so far away from our purpose and so far away from really unlocking that God-given destiny that's rightfully ours. So as you practice listening, you take time to rest, ask questions. So this is how I operate with the still small voice. I ask questions of my still small voice. I ask questions that I want answers to, like, what is going on? Why am I feeling like this? And as I ask some questions, it's like having a cup of coffee with your friend and you're trying to understand, you're trying to connect more deeply. You ask questions, right? You ask questions that help to get that clarity, to get that connection, to get that understanding, so that your relationship can be healthy and better and strong. Well, it's the same with your spirit. Your spirit part of you, that is a part that you must take time and invest in to develop a relationship with. So asking questions, getting curious about, well, why? Why do I do those things? What's going on? What am I thinking? Because when we are just driven by our soul, our thoughts, our feelings, our will, our desires, we actually take ourselves into a lot of mess. And as we get deeper into that mess, we get more and more disconnected with that still small voice. So we have to create space. And for me, I created a space in my home which just was like, that's the space I went to practice this. It was just a helpful way to discipline myself and say, right here, right now. And I did actually set a timer for 2 minutes, and then I got it to 5. And now I can sit for ages and ages. And actually, what's so precious about this is that the longer I sit and the more I hear and take action on what I hear, the more empowered I actually become. So this is where the power, the life, the energy, the flow actually stems from. You don't get power through your thoughts. You don't get power through your emotions, through your soul. That part is just meant to reflect the life and the energy in you. It's not meant to dictate to you how to live. So practicing to wait and rest and listen, I have my journal or I have something I can make notes on, because often I find that the still small voice is so still, so small, so gentle that it can almost be like a dandelion. That's why I chose a picture of a dandelion. You know, when you get a dandelion flower and you blow it into the wind, and before you know it, those little dandelions, they've gone. That's what my thoughts can be like. They can just be such like a flash of light that just comes through and then boom, it's gone. And so trying to catch those thoughts and trying to catch those, that sense, that intuition that's going on, I just need a pen and paper sometimes to write it down, which is why I always have one nearby when I'm in this space, in this place of really trying to connect with a still small voice. Now, it takes time to develop this. It takes practice. It takes connecting with a part of you that maybe has not had a voice or had an opportunity to be heard for a long, long time. So it's a bit like reconnecting with an old friend, you know, you haven't spoken to for ages. You might have known them when you were back in your school days or, you know, work environment, or who knows. It's like reconnecting with someone that you haven't known for a while. Now, when you're reconnecting, give yourself space, give yourself grace, give yourself compassion to just continue to practice this. Because some days you might sit down and it's an empty slate and you're just not able to do it. Don't give up. You know, when you were a kid learning to talk, if the words didn't come out right and you just gave up, then obviously you never learned to communicate. But there's something about that childlike faith that just goes at it again and gives it another shot. And there's so few children that never learn to talk because they have that tenacity, that resilience, that determination. So it's like being that child again and embracing that childlike behavior, to put the pen down if at the end of the day you got nothing, and say, that's okay. Today's today. It's just not a day for anything. I'll just put that aside and give it a go tomorrow. And instead of, you know, shaming and blaming and coming down on yourself because you didn't hear anything, don't do that. Now, some people say that this still small voice sounds like their own. Others say it sounds really soft and gentle. There's so many different ways that everyone describes the still small voice. And so there's no one way, there's no right way, there's no only this way. This is the still small voice. If you heard it like this or like that, no. It actually is so unique to every single person. And so however it sounds to you, just start to listen to it and just start to hear it. A little child listens for their mother's voice and very quickly starts to recognize it. Again, it's just like being that little child. It's like being that little child and starting to recognize, that's my still small voice. That's the voice that's been trying to speak to me. So look, just some strategies in terms of engaging with your still small voice. You know, if you want to give this a go, then like from today, give yourself, 2 minutes in the day to slow yourself down. If you've got a big decision to make, or you've got a change coming up, there's a transition and you're not sure which way to go, take some time just to slow yourself down and start asking questions. Get curious. Curiosity is just the most incredible gift. I've watched these 2 cats that we've adopted now just get curious when a new box comes in the house. They've got to be in it. They've got to sniff it. They've got to explore it. whatever comes new into our house, the next minute we're finding these cats actually like owning it, and oh, this looks interesting. I'm going to have a sit in here. So it's like taking that kind of mindset, being curious. Something's come up, something new. Let's get curious about it. So some of the ways that you get curious, or we get curious, is we ask questions. You can't say you're curious if you don't follow through with some questions. Curiosity means investigating. So start asking some questions. A yes or no question is a really good place to start. And so maybe you're trying to get some direction. Should I take this job? Should I date this guy? Should I do this or that? Ask a yes or no question. So ask in that spot, in that place where you're sitting and you're quiet and you're resting, listening for the voice, and say, perhaps, should I take that job? And then wait and listen. If you don't hear anything straight away, that's okay. Because remember, you haven't been engaging with this still small voice for a long time. But what I do say is that when you ask the question, the very first thing you hear is the still small voice, the very first thing. And it can be so fleeting and so fast. It's almost sometimes the instant you ask, you'll hear something. Yes, no. Now, when you don't capture that, what happens is then your logic brain kicks in and you start to rationalize what you heard. So it might be, do I take that job? Maybe that job is lower paid. Maybe that job is not as good as what you got right now, but where you are right now is hell. So you'd be willing to compromise on a few things just to have a happier work environment. All of that overthinking, you just ruminate round and round and take you round and round in circles. If you sit and listen to the still small voice and you ask, should I take that job? And very quickly you hear that yes, then what will happen is your mind, your logic brain will kick in and go, oh, but it's less money. Oh, actually, I don't know any of those people. Oh, it's a bit further away. Now you've asked and you've connected with that spirit part of you and you've heard the yes, but the logic part of you, the soul part of you, is now trying to override that yes and trying to make suggestions like, you couldn't have heard that right. That doesn't make sense. And guess what? When you listen to the still small voice, often it doesn't make sense. I think of like Abraham in the Bible. He hears the still small voice say, leave everything you know, leave this family and go. Go. I'm not telling you where, just go. Now, if your still small voice told you that, would you be jumping up and putting all your life in order and selling all the stuff you don't need and getting your wife and children or husband or whatever to join you in this crazy journey? Probably not. And yet, this is one of the incredible things. We are so used to operating out of logic, out of comfort, out of what seems like culturally acceptable around us, that we don't often engage in some of the incredible opportunities that we might have. And that's the resistance that comes up. The resistance comes up and it tries to cut across the still small voice and talk you out of it and say, oh, that can't possibly be right. Well, that's why it takes practice to listen to that voice and respond. And then it takes faith. Mostly it takes faith to act on the still small voice or to even listen to it and accept that it might have told you something that doesn't make sense. When that still small voice speaks, it wants to guide you. It wants to give you direction. It wants to help you understand and make sense of things that might not make sense for you. But one thing I can probably guarantee almost 100% is that when that still small voice speaks, often in the moment, it won't make sense. And it will require a step of faith to act on it. But then when you do that, you open up doors of opportunity. You open up things that you weren't able to engage and embrace before. Because when we're stuck in our soul, we're limited by our thinking, by our feelings, by our desires. But when we drop down and let our spirit become a guiding force and let that still small voice guide us and lead us, then we're going to be challenged, we're going to be stretched, but then that's where the growth really, really happens. Like these beautiful, well, not all of them are people, but last week or the last few weeks I've been speaking about resistance. And this is the thing that comes up against us hearing the still small voice. The resistance jumps up and cries out and screams out at us and says, why would you want to put yourself through that much pain? Why would you want to be so uncomfortable? Why would you do that? Now, this beautiful soul here, I think it's Simone, I keep forgetting to check, but she's the US gymnast in the 2021 Olympics, who was going for her fourth or whatever gold medal, big gold medal haul, but had a mental breakdown, something happened, and she ended up pulling out of the Olympics. Now, to her credit, she faced the resistance that was coming up against her. She went back in and competed in another event, and she won this bronze medal, well below what she was maybe capable of. But what she did was she pushed through the resistance. Now, if she continued to listen to the way she was thinking, the way she was feeling, the actions she took would be very different. They would have been, as she had already made that decision to pull out, she wouldn't have had the capacity to jump in. So resistance always comes up when we are wanting to live from the spirit, when we're wanting to live and listen to that still small voice and follow the life and the flow and the energy. That's where it comes from, the spirit part of us. That's where the life is. So if your life is not bringing forth the fruit of life and energy, then it means that you're living in your soul. And when you're living in your soul, you're going to always hit the limits. You're always going to hit the wall. When you're living in your spirit, you give life. Like that beautiful mama and baby there. She had to push through the resistance of those contractions, probably the resistance of carrying that weight around for all of those 9 months. Probably the anxiety and fear of, is this baby okay? Will this baby be born healthy and strong? There's so much that comes up when you're carrying a baby that we must push through. Otherwise, we end up living in our soul and living within the limits and the constraints of what our soul is telling us. But this woman, she's pushed through. She's let the pain bring the birth and give her this beautiful baby that it's just so sweet. These are the things that we haven't been taught so much how to work with. And I feel for me that it was connecting with the still small voice, learning to really trust, walk by faith and not by what I could see. When we push through the resistance, there's good fruit that will come. The one thing I can't tell you is how long you'll have to push for. Same as a mama giving birth, you know. I used to be so like, you only labored for 1 hour. That's just not fair. But we all have a different time frame. We all have a different journey that we must push through the resistance to get that fruit, to get that birth, to get that strength, to get the success, to be able to step into that purpose and calling for which we have been put on this earth for. Does that make sense? Listening to the still small voice. It takes practice. It takes creating a space of quiet and rest. It takes persistence, sticking with it, not quitting and not giving up. And as you do that, you know, now for me, that still small voice is really my guiding force. It's the thing that I couldn't live without. I could not live without it. I don't know how I did before, and I didn't live that well and that happy, to be quite honest with you. I was unraveling at a rate of knots. But if you make a choice to start engaging with that still small voice, and it is so still, it is so small, it's not bossy, it's not going to slap you around, it's giving you the choice. You have the choice to listen to it or to not listen to it. You have the choice to engage with it or not engage with it. It totally is your choice. And as you make the choice to engage with the still small voice, you open up a flow of energy, you open up a flow of life, you open up a flow of opportunity, of doors opening for you. Now, it doesn't mean things just suddenly don't be hard anymore. It doesn't mean that things just get easy. It just means that you're not overthinking. You're not in your head all the time. You're not being run by your emotions, which when you are living out of your soul, it's wearisome, it's tiring, it's exhausting. But when you're living out of your spirit, it's life-giving and life-breathing. Now, making the transition between where you are maybe right now, if you are living out of your soul, to becoming aligned to live and engage with the still small voice and let that spirit part of you be more of a guiding force, there is a journey. It just doesn't happen overnight. And I can't say when I think, oh man, that really shifted, but I know that it has. And it's like anything, you know, when you're learning your tables at school, your times tables, you don't just suddenly wake up one day and you've got it. It's practice, 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 lots of repetitions, pressing in, and then eventually it's like, oh, I know my tables. It just comes to me like that now. That's what engaging with your still small voice can do for you. It can open up doors of insight into why you're thinking, how you're thinking, why you're feeling, how you're feeling. It opens up space to create with, to connect with the memories and those things that have happened a long time ago that might have brought some pain and trauma in your life. And it creates a space to really be able to embrace the fullness of who you are. And that is game-changing. For me, that's been game-changing. So as I walk women through the 5 steps that I use, those 5 steps all involve connecting with the still small voice. And so we practice and practice and practice. And as we practice and as we engage and as we listen and as initially maybe you get support from others or from me, eventually you're going to be in a space where it just is second nature to you. And for me, it's pretty much second nature. But every now and again, I'll hit a snag and I just can't seem to get clarity, or I'm uncertain. And so then I engage with others who I really know have been on this journey as well, and I engage with others to try and help me to connect if I need that support. So there's improvement, and there's always gains that we make with this. But to think that it will be something that then I'm just a totally independent island and I don't need anyone else, I don't think that's actually how we're meant to live. And that's not what is healthy, and it's not what is good. Staying connected with the still small voice, staying connected with others, being in community, and being in the community of women who are hungry and passionate for understanding these concepts and bringing health to their emotions, health to their heart, healing to the pain and the conflict. That's what I'm really passionate about. And so I am starting my 6-week workshop as of now. It's something you can jump in at any time. You don't have to start with a group at week 1, but when you start will be your week 1. And as you walk through the 6 weeks, that will help you to see what those 5 steps are, how they can actually help to bring out some insight, some revelation, some understanding of what's going on for you. In the 6-week workshop, you'll get to really identify some of the root issues that might be underlying and causing some emotional yuck in your life. And as you start to connect with those and you see how they've shaped you and shaken you, we start to step up and out of that place. Then we set up a bit of an action plan moving forward. And then we bring in some tools and some skills that will really help with consistency, maintaining that consistency on a, that doesn't have to be every single day of your life, but as frequently and as consistently as we possibly can. And I know for me, something as simple as just putting the date on a journal entry or on whatever I'm doing is so helpful, because when I start to spiral down or I get a little bit messed up in my process, I'll go back and go, oh my gosh, that was a week ago, or that was a month ago. It's been so long since I've been engaging with my spirit, with my still small voice. That's probably why I've fallen in a bit of a hole or a bit of a heap. And things are always coming up. And well, we're like onions, if we just peeled every layer away all at once, there'd be nothing there, right? So just layer gently, layer by layer, little by little. That's a really beautiful, gentle process to take. Of course, we all want to be better yesterday. We all want to be living life fully engaged with our purpose and the people in our lives, but that's just not realistic. Starting a journey, going on a journey, staying on the journey for life. That's what's going to be incredibly empowering and enabling and equipping for us as women. So let's get together. Let's do the journey together. I am not the only one. I need others, and I love embracing others in my life. And sometimes it can be a person that I'm actually serving will speak something to me, which happened just yesterday. In fact, very, very briefly, a beautiful soul who as we were working in a heart encounter together, it came out that there'd been a hand over her mouth. Her voice had been suppressed. And as we unpacked some of this, she started to get very connected with a still small voice, even in her own time. And then in a follow-up session, she shared with me some of the insights that she got about why this hand had suppressed her voice. By the end of the second time that we'd been working on this, she started to speak to me. She found her voice. Her voice is actually a voice of incredible authority. And with that voice, she started to speak things to me which really blew my mind away, to be quite honest. I was like, oh my gosh. And I said to her, do you realize what you're doing? Do you realize what's happening right now? Your voice is not suppressed. You are using your voice and you're speaking to me. And she actually imparted some really powerful words to me, which align very, very much with what's happening for me right in this moment. You know, how precious is that? So we don't have to be doing this for 20 years before we can be of use to anyone. Just start connecting with the still small voice now. Don't wait till tomorrow. Don't wait till next month. Don't wait till whenever. There's no better time than now. And if you decide now to get on that journey, then jump in with this workshop. I'm actually looking for just a handful of women, 10, maybe a little more, because I want to do a beta test. So this workshop is incredibly well priced for what you get, but I want you to be part of the journey to help me create the Emo app. And this app is going to be a way that women at a very affordable, in a very accessible way can go through this process themselves, because my heart is to see women free. My heart is to see you free. My heart is to see us as women really being able to rise up and step into the truth, that true, genuine, authentic me and you, without all of the crap, muddying the waters, and getting some incredible clarity, to be able to embrace our uniqueness, to be able to fully embrace that unique, genuine me that I am, and not be concerned that it's not like you or her or them, but it's me. And then embracing that about each other, embracing that uniqueness, and not feeling like we all have to be cookie cutters, same shape, same size, same model. That's not actually the beauty of life. So that's my heart. I'll put in the description as well the link to the 6-week workshop. It will be a perpetual thing. So if you want to jump in a month's time, do that. And it'll be a 6-week series, which once you've done the 6 weeks, you will get the opportunity, maybe if you choose, to stay connected on like a monthly, in a monthly way, and get access to a lot of the materials that I have and I've been using and teaching and helping women with. And then, of course, community. It's a big piece, just staying connected in with community, engaging in sessions where you can have heart encounters, where you can learn how to do this. And that's what I want to do as well, start getting others involved in the process so that we can learn from one another. And, there's ways that you will be, and gifts that you will bring that will bless me, and gifts that others that will bring into this whole mix that will bless us all. So we're just much better together. It takes some vulnerability. And if you've built some walls in your life because of the pain or the emotional wounds that you carry, that's totally understandable. But starting a journey towards emotional health and healing, that's what's going to be game changing. That's what's going to help you bring down those walls, open up the doors, and step into new opportunities for your life. So the still small voice. You can download the action sheet, the one that I had on the screen just now, and work through it for yourself a bit. Grab yourself a journal, bit of paper, and no excuse with journaling. If you hate writing, I fully understand that. Grab your phone. And, sometimes for me, when I'm, I don't have a piece of paper on me, I just go to my memos in my phone and I work through that. So take care, be blessed, and I'll see you next week.